A manufacturer finds that the total cost C of producing a product is given by the function C equals A Q squared plus 5Q plus 200, where Q is the number of units produced. Find number one, the level of output at which the average cost per unit will be minimum. And number two, the minimum average cost per unit. Okay, so first things first, we need to know how to get our average cost per unit. So basically, the average cost is the cost of making just one unit, okay, colleagues? So average cost is the total cost divided by the number of units. All right. As I said, when you hear in economics, whenever you just say average cost, just know that that's just the cost for each unit. Okay. Now, in this question here, our cost, okay, is 3Q squared plus 5Q plus 200. So you put it there. 3Q squared plus 5Q plus 200. And then they've told us Q is the number of units produced. So where we have number of units here, we write Q. Okay. So we just need to simplify this equation. Okay, so this is the same as 3Q squared over Q plus 5Q over Q plus 200 over Q. This Q goes, we have a 3Q here, plus this Q goes, we have a 5. Yeah. Uh-huh. Mhm. Sure. Okay, then your screen is lagging because, yeah, but okay, but since you're able to see, that's good. That's good. Yes. Yes, colleagues, this is our average cost. We're not yet done, but this is the starting point. We need to get first our average cost. All right. So this fraction here, we've simplified it so that it becomes 3Q plus 5 over 200Q. Any questions? Maybe asking why have you broken it down like that, sir? Is that your other question? Sir, why have you broken them down like that? Any questions before we go to the next part? Then the first question is asking us what find out the level of output at which the average cost will be minimum. So basically, we need to find Q. Okay. So this is the first part here. First, get your average cost. And let me just check here after you do that. Okay, it's to derive next. So the next thing we need to do is we need to derive basically. So we need to derive this function. Once we derive this function, we'll set the equation equal to 0 so that we can find the value of Q. So colleagues, this time it's not X, it is Q that we are deriving. So same principles. So let's derive this function, colleagues. Think of Q as X. The way we derive the way we derive 3X, the same way we derive 3Q. Even this one, this 5 since it doesn't go, so it's disappearing. This we need to use, since the Q is below, we need to apply the laws of indices. So when we derive 3Q first, what do we get? The same way you derive 3X. When you derive 3X, what did you get? So even this 3Q, when we derive it, we get 3, right? 5, when we derive it, disappears. What about this 200Q when we derive? What happens? Uh-huh. Mm-hmm. No, 200, when we simplify it, it becomes 200Q to the power negative 1. Then you derive now. Okay, so this one becomes like 200Q to the power negative 1. Uh-huh. So when we derive it, what do we get? So this negative 1 times 200 becomes negative 200. Then this, remember, we subtract a 1, so it becomes the power, so it becomes 200Q to the power negative 2. Are we okay with that, colleagues? Then we simplify. So this, not simplify, when we put this in a proper format, what does it become? This 200Q to the power negative 2, what does it become? Yes. Any questions before we go to the next step where we need to now equate this derivative to 0? Okay, so now we equate this to 0. So it becomes 303 minus 200 over q squared equals 0. Because remember, we're trying to find the value of q. So colleagues, let's solve this equation. What's the first thing that we do? What's the first thing we do, colleagues? Madam Sylvia, what's the first thing that Yes, you can move the 3 to the other side, or if you want, you can move this negative 200 over q squared to the other side. Colleagues, why is it when we're answering, we always start by saying, I'm just trying? Is that a way to say that even though I get the answer wrong, forgive me? Okay, no, you can just say, okay, okay, no, yeah, I get it. Okay, you're not sure. All right. Thank you, madam, for clarifying that. Okay, so then what do we do next now? Wonderful. Then what's the next thing we do? Yes. Yes, because we want the q to remain alone, okay? Whenever you want to find the value of a variable, you always want the variable to remain alone. So 200 divided by 3, okay? Then want to get the value of q, so we get the square roots of both sides. Square root of q squared is q. What is the square root of 66.67? So we can just round it off to, since it's number of units, 8 units. Okay. So if we want to minimize our costs, we need to produce 8 units. Then our costs will be at a minimum. Any questions? Mm-hmm. That's where we left you. He- oh, okay. Here, remember, we were deriving. Okay, we were deriving. So remember, we started with this 200 over q. So this 200 over q is the same as 200 q to the power negative 1. Um, Now, when you derive, remember, multiply the exponent with the coefficient, subtract a 1 from the exponent, uh, then this, we rearranged it to become this. Not on the other side. The deriving started after we got our average cost. Once you first you get your average cost, then now after you get your average cost function, then you derive it. Because with these questions for quadratic equations, whenever they ask you for a minimum or a maximum, you need to derive whatever function you've been given and you equate it to zero. Okay, so here we had our average cost function. So after we got our average cost function, then we derived it. After deriving it, we set our derivative. So this is like our derivative here. This 3 minus 200 over q squared. Then once you get your derivative, then you equate it to zero, so that you get your value. So the derive, yes, madam. Madam, were you about to ask a question? Next, we need to find the minimum average cost per unit. So we come back to our average cost function here. And since we found the value of q, we just substitute. So average cost was 3q plus 5 plus 200 over q. So since we found the value of q, so we substitute q with 8. 3 times 8, 24 plus 5. 200 divided by 8, what do we get? Okay, 20, 25 flat, huh? Okay, so how did you get 54? Because 24 plus 5, 29. 29 plus 5, isn't that? Oh, 54. Hey. Oh, then this is me who's. Yes, 54 kwacha or $54, whichever unit is being used.